Close your eyes and drift back to 1900. Chicago isn't just a city, it's a living furnace. Steel mills roar by day, railroads scream by night, and the air tastes of coal, sweat, and ambition. Immigrants flood its arteries, chasing the American dream and finding instead the American grind. Among them, Sicilians arrive with calloused hands and unbroken pride. They build their little Italy on the near West Side, a maze of tenements, bakeries, and whispers. Poverty is thick as soot, but community holds them together. Yet inside those crowded alleys, a darker seed begins to grow. It starts small, letters slipped under doors, drawn with a crude black hand and a dagger. Pay or suffer. These aren't idle threats. When a butcher refuses, his shop burns before sunrise. When a grocer ignores the note, his son vanishes. The newspapers call it the Black Hand, but the locals already know it's fear taking form. From those first extortions, something ruthless learns to breathe. Crime evolves from chaos into structure, from desperation into enterprise. Chicago, still rebuilding from its great fire, is about to light another one, born not from accident, but intention. By 1910, Chicago is divided by language and blood. The Irish control the police, the Germans run breweries, and the Italians, they rule fear. Don Jim Colosimo rises first, dressing like a prince while ruling like a predator. His restaurants serve wine to the wealthy upstairs and crime to the desperate below. Men come to him with debts, and he makes them disappear, sometimes literally. Beneath his velvet veneer stands Giovanni Johnny Torrio, quiet, strategic, a man who sees patterns where others see chaos. Torrio studies the Black Hand and imagines something larger, not random letters and bombings, but an empire built on order. Under Torrio's influence, violence becomes a business model. Enemies aren't killed in alleys anymore. They're removed with purpose, timing, precision. Rival gangs crumble, police chiefs drink from hidden pay envelopes, and Chicago's underworld begins to speak with one voice. The newspapers still scream of terror, but in the smoky backrooms the tone changes. Power is no longer about muscle, it's about management. And every deal, every bribe, every bullet traces back to one idea. Control the fear, and you control the city. Then comes the law that changes everything, prohibition. In 1920, the United States outlaws alcohol, and in doing so, creates the richest black market in history. Torrio sees opportunity. Al Capone sees destiny. Under Torrio's mentorship, Capone transforms from enforcer to entrepreneur. They reopen saloons as secret speakeasies, move beer through hidden tunnels, and bribe entire police precincts. Chicago drinks again. Only now it pays the mafia for every sip. Control the beer, Capone says, and you control the city. Soon, his network stretches across every district. Breweries, politicians, judges, cops. The city's veins run with liquor and corruption. But success invites blood. Rival gangs, the North Side Irish led by Dino Bagnan, challenge the Italians' rule. Bombings light up the night. Gunfire echoes down Michigan Avenue, and citizens whisper that Chicago has turned into a war zone. In 1925, Torrio is shot and retreats to Italy, leaving Capone in command. What follows is legend. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, 7 men executed in cold blood. Newspapers christen him Scarface, the crime king of Chicago. Yet beneath the power and glamour, the city trembles. Capone's empire feeds on violence and publicity alike, and both will destroy him. When Capone finally falls to the taxman in 1931, most believe the mafia's reign is over. They are wrong. His lieutenants reorganize the chaos into a corporation, the Outfit. It trades bullets for boardrooms, gambling dens for casinos, and corrupt aldermen for senators. Names change, but the methods remain. From Chicago's stockyards to Las Vegas's neon strip, the same invisible rules apply. Silence, loyalty, profit. The mafia becomes not a gang, but an institution woven into the fabric of America's growth. They build suburbs with laundered money, fund politicians, even shape unions. The empire no longer hides in alleys. It hides in plain sight. Yet the ghosts remain. Every bridge carries echoes of gunfire. Every brick of the Lexington Hotel hums with the memory of Capone's laughter. Today, tourists take selfies where blood once pooled, never realizing how much of modern Chicago stands on foundations of fear. The mafia didn't just steal or kill. It taught America how power works in the dark. And that's the real story. Not the gangsters, not the guns, but the system that survived them all. The outfit still whispers through city politics, real estate deals, and backroom favors. Chicago rebuilt itself from ashes, but the smoke never left.
Close your eyes and drift back to the turn of the century. It is Chicago in the 1900s, a city of smoke and steel, of clanging railroads and the uneasy hum of immigrant neighborhoods, where saloons line every corner and gangsters begin to take root. Here, crime is no longer ragtag street brawls. It is organization, it is business, and in time, it will be an empire. This is the story of Chicago's Mafia in its earliest years, their rise from Sicilian immigrant societies, their grip over illicit trades, their blood-soaked wars across the city, and the characters who carved fear into the cobblestones. So settle in, shoulders relaxed, lights dim. This will not be a tale of car chases or gangster films, but a sleepy wandering into back rooms filled with cigar smoke, early gun battles, and rival clans trying to seize Chicago's soul.
The Italian Mafia in Chicago began quietly, almost invisibly. In the late 19th century, waves of Sicilian immigrants fled hunger, poverty, and political turmoil, making their way across the Atlantic to cities like New Orleans, New York, and Chicago. They arrived carrying little more than calloused hands, strong traditions, and networks of family and loyalty they trusted more than strange new institutions. Chicago, already booming after the Great Fire of 1871, was a magnet for opportunity. Immigrant neighborhoods sprung up like small fragments of old Italy transplanted onto American soil. Little Italy on the near west side became the heartbeat. Tenements crammed with families, streets filled with vendors hawking bread, fruit, and wine. But poverty was thick, work was unstable, and in a city where discrimination ran deep, Sicilians relied on familiar structures, extended family bonds, secret societies, and an expectation that someone always held authority. It was within these settlements that the earliest whispers of the Black Hand appeared, letters demanding payment from neighbors, signed with crude sketches of daggers or blackened palms. These were precursors of the Mafia, small cliques organizing for intimidation, for profit, for power. From such beginnings, the Mafia learned quickly. Fear opens purses more effectively than friendship. The Black Hand Era. By the early 1900s, the Italian underworld was notorious for its extortion racket known as La Mano Nera, or the Black Hand. Shopkeepers, bakers, grocers, anyone who seemed to be making money received letters stuffed into their mail slots demanding cash. Pay promptly and your store survived untouched. Refuse and a suspicious fire or a bullet through the window soon followed. Newspapers fanned the flames, reporting every bombing and murder supposedly tied to these letters. To ordinary Chicagoans, Little Italy became synonymous with terror. Yet within those neighborhoods, the line between friend and foe blurred. Some victims quietly paid, others denounced the threats as hoaxes, and a few embraced the system, joining the gangs themselves. Police raids often amounted to little. The code of silence ensured few would ever testify. And so, the Black Hand loomed like a shadow over immigrant Chicago, teaching would-be mafiosi their first lasting lesson. Crime, if managed well, could masquerade as a form of order. Early mafia leaders. By 1910, figures began to emerge who would shape the Chicago Mafia's first true structure. Names like Jim Colosimo, a Sicilian immigrant who initially hustled in gambling and petty rackets, but soon became a wealthy restaurateur and brothel owner. To the public, Colosimo was flashy, diamond rings on his fingers, fine suits adorning his frame, and banquets hosted in long-lit halls where wine never stopped flowing. But beneath the glamour, he built something more lasting. He organized scattered racketeers under his sway. Prostitutes, bootleggers in waiting, gamblers, extortionists, all were folded into an underworld network where Colosimo collected the profits and enforced loyalty. He was, in the eyes of many, Chicago's first true mafia boss of bosses. At his side for a time was Giovanni "Johnny" Torrio, a calculating figure with a gift for organization and vision. Torrio looked westward, saw far-reaching opportunity in prohibition, which was already stirring, and dreamed of something bigger, cleaner, more controlled. Together, these men turned what had been chaotic into something chillingly businesslike. Section 4. The Coming of Prohibition. In 1920, America stumbled into one of its grandest and strangest experiments, Prohibition. The Volstead Act outlawed the sale and production of alcohol, intending to uplift morals and health. Instead, it carved an empire for men like Torrio, and soon for his protege, a fiery young gangster named Alphonse Capone. Saloons shuttered publicly, but reopened underground as speakeasies, hidden behind butcher shops or laundry counters. Whiskey flowed through secret networks of smuggling boats, trucks, and brewery basements. And Chicago's mafia, better organized than rival gangs, seized control with astonishing speed. The Wyos of New York may have ruled by whistles and boots, but the Chicago Mafia realized, control the beer and you control the city. Protection rackets expanded. Politicians were bribed richly to look the other way. Police officers found envelopes tucked inside cigar boxes and looked no further. To any corner of Chicago where Prohibition reached, the Mafia's grip followed like a shadow. Gang war success, of course, invites rivals, and Chicago in the 1920s became a battlefield. Rival Irish gangs like Dean O'Banion's Northsiders clashed brutally with Torrio's Southside Italian syndicate. Saloons were bombed, beer trucks hijacked, gunfire arced across busy streets. Ordinary Chicagoans awoke to headlines screaming of machine gun duels, corpses in alleys, and judges bribed beyond redemption. Johnny Torrio, wounded in an ambush, handed leadership to his scarred lieutenant, Al Capone. With his broad frame, heavy brow, and ruthless instinct, Capone became both infamous and charismatic. Newspapers turned his name into a legend, Scarface, the crime king of Chicago. While he sat in suites at the Lexington Hotel, enemies fell in droves. But even before Capone's dominance, the early wars of the 1900s had soaked enough blood to feed the city's myth forever. These were not fleeting brawls. They were urban wars, where alliances shifted with wallets and vendettas burned for years. Roots of the outfit. Though Capone would later dominate history books, the foundations of what became known simply as the outfit were laid in these years. The name reflected what it was, not just a gang, but a business outfit, with hierarchy, territories, codes of secrecy, and streams of income running from prostitution to gambling to alcohol to extortion. Violence was a tool, but money was the engine. And in Chicago, money flowed endlessly. Through politicians' hands, through saloons, through the busy industrial docks. The Mafia became part of the city's bloodstream. For many immigrants, it was twistedly familiar, just like the protection collectives in Old Sicily. For ordinary residents, it was both a terror and, strangely, a stabilizer. You paid, you obeyed, and life, however shadowed, went on. The brutal wars of early 1900 Chicago left scars deep into the 20th century. Characters like Colosimo, Torrio, and Capone formed only the first act of a story that stretched for decades. Political corruption, organized crime in unions, control of casinos, all grew from these early foundations. For the Wayos in New York, history passed them by. But in Chicago, the Mafia evolved, branding itself into legend. Every later story of brutal gang wars, every Hollywood tale of Italian crime lords, its roots lie here, in the Black Hand letters, the smoky speakeasies, the bloody streets of the early 1900s. Tonight, you heard just one chapter, the birth of Chicago's Mafia. The rest is another tale for another night. So close your eyes now, rest safely, knowing your bed is softer than any Chicago tenement cot, and that the ghostly gunfire of 1920s gangsters has long since faded into history.